Do they become school property? There's a lot of other things, I think, with the stormwater easements and things by the pool of what that parcel would look like as well. But again, I think that defining an area and having a lease agreement to me seems like it would just be easier to do and less expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that part of it too. I do understand their part of not wanting to make expensive updates and then not own that piece of property. I guess I can see both sides of that coin. Administrator Kyle?
So just as a clarification, the blue line on the map, I believe represents the current parcel. The red lines, which actually cross over the parcel lines in some areas, represent the kind of bounds of the field. And so the red area, I believe, is what Zach developed as, if you want the field, this gives you the field. So that's, the red area is kind of what's proposed, I guess.
Trina?
Yeah, much like the mayor, I'm really interested in looking at some long-term lease language to take a step back and see if that might make more sense for the city.
Mayor Tom, did you have more further comments?
I think is to the concern of the school district or even the youth sports groups that donate a lot of things for the fields down there. If there's paranoia, I guess, or mistrust in moving forward in that fashion, right now there's just a shared use facility. I mean, they're all turning into donations and they're turning into city property ultimately. So I guess if there was some concern about that, the city's always had the ability to say, hey, guess what, we're going to build an airport there and we need you to move out and you don't have a football field. The city's always had the right to do that. We've never done that. I think having lease language allows both parties to formalize the relationship for the long term for its obvious use, which is athletic fields. With the approval of the referenda, I don't think anybody could predict where a new high school could be in 5, 10, or 20 years. So I think having a lease probably just makes more sense at this point rather than going through and breaking off a parcel. And I just can't see the city ever deciding that they're going to change that. They're going to really upset a lot of people that have put a lot of time and effort into, the scoreboards, the bleachers, and all the amenities that have helped build an athletic park. So I get their concern, but I think that concern was always there.
Alder Piper.
Could we, I agree with the lease aspect as well, but could there be the lease language saying that, like, if the school district were to replace lights at a cost of, to use your number, $100,000, and they put turf in at the cost of $50,000, and then we say, okay, we want the land back, and then they're worried about not being, not recouping their costs, so we put like that we would account for, I guess, depreciation on those goods, that we would give them, let's say 75% of, or 65%, or make up a number, or say, to offset the costs that you have improved this field, so you're not like totally out the money, but and it's only like if we're gonna quote unquote steal the land back.
I'm not an attorney, but the city has one, and I'm sure that we can incorporate a language in there to reflect some of that if the school is concerned about investments that are put onto a piece of property that is leased, I guess. That's not really my concern. I think anything is possible in lease language. But again, what would the city be doing? Are we going to start a AAA baseball team and say, hey, we don't have time for high school kids anymore? We're starting a a semi-pro team through the city and we don't have room for you here, it's pretty obvious what the use for that property has been for forever. I think Attorney Johnson had said when we first started that, if we start looking through the documents or whatever's left at the county, was this granted to the city for specific uses or under certain conditions? What is the city going to do with the parcel of land that's a football field that's located between a golf course and a pool and a school? You know, maybe it's just having that language in there to make sure that give some reassurance to the school that it is going to continue to serve its current purpose and would not, couldn't be changed.
I'm so neutral, I'm like Switzerland right now. I feel like I don't understand what benefit the field is giving us right now, other than further maintenance. I don't understand, I mean, if we're using it very rarely, I don't see why we advocate to keep it. I don't know. I'm not sure. Ian?
So I 100% understand the mayor's stance on wanting a lease over a purchase.
Okay.
And conventionally that does protect us a lot better than a purchase would. But in this scenario, I think as long as we redrafted the purchase agreement in order to protect the city, and we had fail safes in order to allow us to purchase that back at each integral moment that could potentially happen, and we had a shared use agreement that was in the benefit to the city, it would release liability, it would release cost, it would release maintenance, it would save us money to sell it. So I'm not opposed to selling it, I just think we need a better purchase agreement than we have currently.
Oh, sorry, everyone.
I don't know who was first, Trina.
Oh, I guess one of my hangups per se for selling is just looking at the boundary line, and the blue parcel doesn't seem to really work at all. It doesn't even include all of what we
The blue.
consider
The blue is not, again, it's not what we're proposing, it's the red that's being proposed, which could change too. So we could change, these lines essentially mean nothing, this is just what's been proposed. Is that correct, Kyle? Is that,
Yeah, I believe the blue represents the actual lines. I mean, it's, you, as you walk through the park, you don't know you're crossing a property line or a parcel line, but you do. And so the blue line is, I believe, the parcel line from the county, and then the red lines are the actual field boundaries, and the red lines are what the original agreement, as we started talking about with Zach and the school district, the original agreement was they wanted the field, the red represented the field as Zach drew it, and so that's what we were contemplating, but I believe the school has additional questions potentially about, we were going to give them an easement so that they didn't have to worry about getting to their field and not having the right, because it's basically a isolated lot. And they asked more questions about, well, what about, why can't we have all the area to the east? And that's something we hadn't contemplated before, but to simplify it for right now tonight, all we were planning on talking about was the red line baseball field. Football field.
combo?
Yes.
So, this is more Ian's bailiwick, and I don't know much about leases. But if we were to add everything that Ian wanted to the contract, would that alleviate some of your concerns, Mr. Mayor? Or would you still prefer a lease if, even if we had all that?
We haven't really heard back, I guess I haven't heard any details or back and forth from the school on where they are about this, and this is already, we started this conversation, quite a few meetings ago. So I guess I don't know what the opposition from the school side of this really is I can understand their concern. My major concern is that the city has owned the current football field and baseball diamond for, well, since before the school. That gives us some leverage in a shared use facility agreement. Without having the football field and other things, we need to have language that at least gives us both equal footing. If we don't have the equal footing going into this, 10 years down the road with different people here, I don't think the city has much bargaining power as far as gym space or other things available that the city wants, that needs to use for recreation programs. We don't own a gymnasium. The school does. And I think, when you get into the minutia of the shared use facilities agreement, that can get quite confusing when you start considering there's the city, there's the school, and then there's other youth sports organizations that use both of those shared uses, whether it's a city field or it's a school gymnasium. So I guess my concern is that if we're going to jump off the ledge, let's at least make sure that we at least are as equally represented as the school, because I think that we are giving a large part of leverage away if we do it that way. I think a lease is always something that can be changed, that can be worked on between different parties, but I think just handing the deed over, the title to a piece of property with an addendum on it, you do it once and you hope you get it right.
Yeah, so I think at this point, it's more, we can see if we can get that language in there for the protection and see what the school district says. But it sounds like we might be at like an impasse for now, and if they don't want to go for a lease, and if they don't want to add those protections in there, then I think we're kind of stuck, if that's what I'm understanding.
We just haven't heard much, there hasn't been a lot of back and forth, I guess, that I've heard as far as the details of why they do like this or why they don't like that. I think we can continue to work on it, and I mean, right now with no sports really happening on the school level, and that was something I'd brought up when this conversation first started too, was I think this year was kind of a strange lesson, and it did matter who owned what piece of property, because I know with the school not having certain activities available, there were a lot of people calling the city from outside of the state looking to rent athletic fields that, lived in a place where they couldn't do any of that stuff. Dane County is a great example. They couldn't practice on fields, they were closed, so they were going to other counties or municipalities looking for that space. My son, who was in soccer, they didn't have soccer, but there were kids that were meeting at the city park to unofficially practice. They could not legally do that on the school grounds. Those are all just small things that maybe you need to address in a lease agreement if you get to a certain point, but who could have predicted COVID, right? So, yeah. The one last thing I wanted to mention, which was weird and is pointed out in here, is that the light controls are in the rest haven for the stadium lights. So I guess if we transfer that, is there a power bill that goes along with it or not? I don't know if there's a meter that's on the rest haven or whether it's metered at all, but that brings up another concern where if,
So are we paying their electric bills for football games already, or?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
And
Ian?
I think that's a big concern, and that's something, if we do sell it, we should give them a very specific amount of time to relocate the controls so that they do not have to access a city building in order to utilize them, and the power should be charged to them. I don't think it's possible to do that now, so part of the purchase agreement should include language of that nature if we do sell.
Sure. I guess I'd like to just mention that I'm not against leasing or the lease option. I don't know that it sounded like that earlier, but I'm not against it. I guess in hearing the mayor speak about it, I do have concerns. At what point, 25 years from now, is anybody on the city going to even remember that there are all these stipulations to when they sign, or when the school district, when or if they sell that land? And, is it going to hold any weight? I don't know. I think that those kinds of things happen all the time where it's like, oops, sorry, we already sold it and we forgot. sorry. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to the lease option either. I don't know that they're gonna go for it. But I guess if they don't go for it, they don't go for it. I don't know what else to say, but, yeah, so if that's the will of the council, I just didn't wanna, like I said, I'm pretty neutral on this whole issue, but.
I mean, a lease option is a lot easier and a lot cleaner and better for the city. If that's not what they want, though, we can create a purchase contract that benefits the city as well. We can go either direction. We can protect ourselves just as much in a purchase contract as we can in a lease. So if they want to, if the school is very much for a purchase as opposed to a lease, that doesn't mean we can't protect ourselves the same way.
Go ahead, Mayor Tony.
I agree with Ian. I think we're gonna need to hear from them what their response is to, I guess, this conversation, our concerns. Things like the power bill, I think Ian hit the nail on the head. If we did transfer that title over and something happened to the rest haven or to the head end, I guess, where the electrical wires meet up and there is no power to the scoreboard, they're gonna be yelling at the city saying, you need to fix this, when it shouldn't actually be on our property or in our building anymore. And I think if those things can't get done, conveniently now, or there's not a budgeted amount for it, that's where at least we can spell it right out to say, here, we'll agree to do this for this long. If it ever transfers, to you, you're going to have to change that within a certain amount of time. I just think with the timing of all this stuff right now, I don't see that there needs to be a rush when it's been this way forever. I think if we do a lease or we do a title transfer, it's probably better for both parties ultimately, savings, et cetera. But it's just got to be done the right way. I just don't want to do it in a hurry.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think we have to hurry at all.
Why not celebrate a good partnership, I guess, with the school? I think we need to work with them, but there just hasn't been a lot of back and forth communication, understanding how we can kind of refine this whole project to meet their needs and also to meet ours.
Okay. So, we need just more communication. All right. We'll see that one back. Number 15, as review and discuss CDBG close participation plan. Match, you are up for this one, please.
In your packets, you'll have a memo that I wrote, as well as the draft resolution and draft citizen participation plan. These two items need to be adopted as part of the CDBG close application. These documents were basically provided to me by DOA, and I went in and filled in the blanks to have these draft documents. I have spoken with DOA. They've indicated that you can use an committee. I recommended in the memo that the Plan Commission be the most likely committee that would be able to handle the duties for the Citizen Participation Committee. Also spoke with DOA about some of the projects that we identified. They have responded that the Second Ward Creek project is a project that they basically encourage. The survey is out to citizens in that area, and I'm working through this survey for the second area after a conversation with them on the Fuller Street project. So really, the participation plan is going to be supporting the projects that we're going to be completing in the upcoming months and years. So these are standard, I guess, forms and templates that I filled in to say City of Columbus. And as I said, this needs to be approved as part of our grant application for these CDBG closed dollars. Any questions on the participation plan or the resolution?
Matt, you broke up a little bit, but did I hear you say that the DOA confirmed that the Plan Commission could serve as the citizen participation group?
Yes.
Okay.
An existing commission or committee can serve as the CDBG Citizen Participation Committee. I think Plan Commission probably works best. So, and that's based off my conversations with DOA, trying to figure out how to meet the requirements for this committee.
This is a really weird question, but I'll blame a different level of government, but it says the City of Columbus shall establish a committee composed of persons representative of the City of Columbus demographics. I can see the Plan Commission. The committee must include at least one LMI person. I mean, how do you really determine that? We're going to ask for W-2 or, I mean, how do you prove that? Or do you
That's so weird.
really need to prove it?
In my conversation with DOA, if we have somebody that's also considered limited clientele, whether it's a senior citizen, that qualifies. So that was kind of my thinking. Instead of doing a survey, I think based on that definition from DOA, I think we'd be fine in with the Plan Commission. So that's why I recommend the Plan Commission.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't actually catch that. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, I don't have any concerns with this. I think I'm okay with moving it forward. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns for Matt at this time? Okay. So, all right, Matt. Thanks. I think we got a plan.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, next agenda item is number 16, health insurance and benefit approvals for 2021. Woo! 0% increase. Originally 1.9% increase. Kyle, tell us about your negotiating skills real quick here.
I didn't do anything. This
Okay.
is partially our experience rating and things like that. I think they want to remain competitive. But it is exciting when you talk about health insurance to see something in the 0% range. So really, I think the question before the council this evening is really, will you authorize the continuing of the health insurance options, and that being two different options, one being the high deductible plan and the other being the more traditional HMO. Then also, as part of the high deductible plan, the city makes contributions for certain plans in the amount of $2,000 for the family or the employee and spouse or the employee and children, and then $1,000 for single coverage. And then also to authorize the rate split between the two options, with it being 88% city contribution to the lowest cost for the high deductible plan, and 85% of the lowest cost for the traditional plan. I think I alluded to in some of the conversations that we've probably had, but that the city may wish to, at a future time, evaluate the sort of standardizing the contribution rate between 85 and 88, and just picking one rate and choosing that low-cost option and then basing the city contribution off of that. But I think that's something you want to talk about in spring, and you want to roll out over summer and have people have a lot of time to make that kind of decision on what's right for them. But just to know that I think that's a good conversation to have moving forward, because there is a significant difference in cost to the employer depending on which plan you choose. So I think it's a good conversation, but ultimately I think we're really faced with a good option here of continuing our current offerings without significant or any impact to the cost.
Woo! You missed my excitement speech. Sorry. Any questions or concerns for Kyle about the health insurance renewal plan? Mayor Tom?
Good news, I guess, 0%. My question is, I guess, do we need to move this forward for action, or is this just going to be part of the budget approval?
So it's really both. We do need an actual approval by the council, but it's, these costs have already been incorporated in the budget. So if you wanted to do something different, it would still have to be supported by the budget, but we definitely need to take action next Tuesday to approve this.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Is everybody okay moving forward? Okay. All right. Okay, number 17, review and discuss Columbus area EMS. And I've got Kyle here again for that. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Kyle put in a ton of work into this, and I read through it, and I was just kind of blown away how much time, I think, and time and energy, and maybe some well-being was sacrificed in all of this. So I think it just needs to be said that we should be very, very grateful for all of the information in front of us this evening and how it's all broken down. So, yeah. Yeah, so essentially, we got some of the stuff we wanted and some we didn't, but.
Yeah, I think that's really where it breaks down. I think there was legitimate items in there that I would have liked to have seen be adopted, that would have made a stronger contract for the group, and then by default, the city as the current majority member of the group. But I felt like there was enough positive changes, and being a kind of necessary service, and how well it historically I think it has worked. I think we're in a position where it just makes sense to move forward and continue to evaluate the results. I did get notification that the contract as it's presented now, the contract itself is not changing from what you see. Appendix B, I think it is, that details the municipal boundaries of all the joint members, was incorrect. I don't think it impacted the city of Columbus at all. I think it was most likely one of the rural communities that had to make sure each section was kind of included on the territory. But if it's moved forward for approval, we'll make sure we have that in advance of the approval.
Okay. Yeah, I know that there's not a lot we can actually do at this point as far as like getting the rest of the changes that we want, but I think that we're moving in the right direction, and I would hope that you also kind of just opened some eyes and maybe some ears as well in the process, and I just really thank you for doing that. Does anybody have any questions for Kyle on the contract or the recommendations, or?
No, just thanks, Kyle, for all the work. I know that this was a lot of work attending the meetings and negotiating on things, and you made a big difference. I appreciate your effort.
And a lot of problems I think that we wouldn't even known existed, or in other, maybe other municipalities as well. So I think, yeah, great effort. Yeah, okay. So that's it. We're gonna move forward. All right. 18 is review and discuss RFP for building inspections. So I have Kyle again.
You sound disappointed, but
I didn't mean to be disappointed. Sorry.
So yes, so this is a follow-up from one of our previous meetings where, in order to kind of test the waters and ensure we're getting the best quality service for the community, there was a desire to go to an RFP process, and we did have to notify them prior to October 1st of that change, and we did that, and they received it. So now comes the part where we need to figure out what's next. And so I have a draft request for proposals. I believe this one was drafted from, I think Door County was the basis for it. And so I think I have, between Matt and myself, we kind of went through and made it customized to Columbus. And so we thought it was a good start. But I think at this point we'd be looking for if it's what you're expecting, if the, timeline looks right, if the format looks right, and basically anything you would like us to change prior to presenting it back next Tuesday, hopefully, for adoption so we can get going, because December 31st will come rapidly.
Personally, I'm very impressed with what you came up with in that amount of time, and everything that I've read through looks perfect.
Mayor Tom, sorry.
Yeah, I'm impressed that you were able to put this together this quickly as well. I like the very specific things about the community. I think that's what we need to let people know who are bidding on, as far as, how the zoning administrator falls into this, et cetera. And also, the changes we've made in recent years to allow, building inspection services to work, do inspections on those 50,000 cubic feet alterations affecting not more than 100,000 cubic feet. That's all new stuff, and I'm glad that it was very specific to the community. I have no problems with it. I think we need to keep things rolling so we can get through the process in a timely manner, obviously, before the end of the year.
See, all shaking heads in the right direction. Okay, good. Thank you, Kyle. All right. Okay, so I'm on, sorry, I'm a little confused here. Review. All right, yeah, number 19, review and discuss repurposing 2020 budget funds to outfit end loader for snow plowing. That time again. Okay. So is this you, Kyle? Sorry.
This is me.
Just because you're DPW
yes,
right now.
As we were working through Zach's budget request, this came up in the capital expenditure request that he had, and it involved, since 2013 they took an old grader out of service, and instead of replacing it, they rented a tractor annually for $8,000 a year, and basically we can take that the loader that's there right now that is just a few years old and outfit it with a plow and wing at a cost of about $40,000 and avoid that $8,000 a year tractor rental altogether. And so in 5 years, we'll be able to just, come break even in 5 years, and after that be a net surplus, basically. In this year, they already set aside $12,500 in that budget line, which wasn't nearly enough to accomplish it. And I'm not sure if the plan was to roll it over. But ultimately, working with Zach before he left, we were able to identify several lines that could potentially fund that in the 2020 budget allocation. Get the contract signed. There is a small increase. I don't know exactly what that is for that same setup after November. But this would allow us to do it this year. It's a month or so process to get it actually done. So if we can get this in November or December, we'll have it in the beginning of January, hopefully. If we wait till next year, we won't have it for a good chunk of the season unless we keep the tractor at that $8,000 rental and then do this in the off season. So we thought it was an opportunity to avoid a future capital expense that would have to be in the budget anyways, and use current year money to see if we can get this done and avoid extra expenses that might not be necessary.
How long have we been renting an $8,000 tractor? Just out of
Since
curiosity.
2013, I believe.
Okay. Mayor Jerome.
If I recall as well, it was a kind of a lease agreement, so even if we didn't need it, we still paid the same amount every year up to a certain amount of hours of use on that rental or lease.
So my understanding is historically, in the very first couple of years, I think it was like, oh, well, gosh, you guys didn't even use it that much. Tell you what, we'll give you a half back or something. And I think over time, that's kind of gone away, in that they have a capital expense that is locked up all year long, whether we're using it or not. And so to give discounts on something, they got to make their money back too. So I think those discounts went away, and I believe it's just $8,000 a year if you want it, up to that amount. But there's no credit for underuse, I believe.
Okay. I think this is a good idea. I don't, I mean, I kind of know why we went to where we went, but I think that owning a piece of equipment, this would go on the new front-end loader that we bought last year, which is the medium-sized loader. It's not the big one, it's kind of the medium-sized one, from my understanding.
Yes, my understanding it's the new loader that we have.
Okay. On the budget, it looks like most of these things are coming from within the DPW, but the Fund 415, Equipment Replacement Fund, proceeds from the 2016 sale of surplus DPW equipment, is that different than the fund that we kind of have everything going into right now, or is that fund? The asset disposal fund, I guess, is what I'm thinking of.
So I believe it's the same fund, but I believe it may have, as I looked into it a little bit, as it was explained to me, it might have predated the current practice where all the money goes just into the general pot of money. This may have been at a time when if DPW sold it, that was DPW's money, and it might stay in the equipment replacement, but it was tagged with DPW. And so I think some of that money still has that tag to it. And so this would clear that out, and then, basically everything would be on the newer policy.
Okay, that was my question, whether it was cleaning that account out or not. The other one is contingency. Is that cleaning out contingency?
No, that does not clean out contingency. So if we used the contingency, it would leave about 33% of the original budget right now, or more than $21,000.
Okay.
So, in the next 90 days or whatever's left of the year, we would still have, a significant amount. And, even if a major expense happened at this point, I think we would have some flexibility here. But we're running out of days where anything major, we wouldn't even be paying with this contingency fund this year. So that window is kind of closing a little bit, but we would still have flexibility to pull elsewhere if needed.
Okay, and then the last question was on the quote. Freight is still to be determined. $39,950. I'm just curious how much it costs to, is that $50 or is that $8,000? I don't know. Just wondering if you figured a little contingency in the freight cost if we've got to come up with that too. So.
Yep, I don't have that information right now, but I can definitely have that for Tuesday if you're interested in moving it forward to the regular meeting.
Is this going somewhere to get installed on there? Are they shipping the blade here, or how does that part of it work?
Yeah, so it has to go away.
Okay.
But in the meantime, they will loan us a similar piece of equipment for our use.
Okay.
So it won't be outfitted with snow removal equipment, but it would have everything that it currently has right now.
Okay, great.
So when they talk about freight, does that freight include us getting our loader to them? Or do we just put it on a flatbed and drive it up there? I don't know how that, I'm just curious.
So my understanding is I thought it was going to go to this Miller and Bradford more locally, but I think the actual equipment needs to be shipped to the actual place it's going to be installed, but that wouldn't be here on site.
I'm fine with it. I just wanted to make sure that we've covered all the other expenses like that as well. Maybe Miller Bradford is gonna bring in our loaner and they're gonna pick ours up and take it back and do all that. I just don't know, but I want to make sure that we've just got it all accounted for. I was surprised that a blade or a plow and a wing cost $40,000, but I get it. It snows in Wisconsin. Sometimes a lot, sometimes not much, but I think owning a piece of equipment rather than leasing it every year is probably smarter. So
We could have owned one already. Ian?
So my first question is, for the equipment that we're leasing currently, what is that lease like? When does it end? Are we obligated to lease next year?
So I believe it ends on December 31st, and we would keep the tractor up until that point. I haven't seen the lease, but my understanding is if we notify them that we're not renewing, that we get out of it. It's a kind of a local lease, but we can pull that up and have that available as well.
We should probably just double check that. Thank you, Ian. That's
Okay,
good.
and I just want to make sure we can get out of the lease prior to this, and we're not still leasing that piece of machinery next year because we did not get out of the lease in time. My other question is, I might be missing something, or I might not have noticed it, but where is all this money coming from within the DPW?
So,
Like,
on the second page of the memo, there's the 12,500 from the snow and ice truck equipment rental line. That was specifically put in the budget for outfitting this. There's the $1,735 from the 2016 surplus DPW equipment. And then garage vehicle repair and maintenance has $5,000 that they think they'll have left over because they're just about done with all their regular vehicle maintenance and they haven't had any major hits. Streets and alley operating supplies and streets and alley painting. Most of the street and alley operating supplies and painting is done for the year, and this is the remaining balances that they have available as they're really out of patching and painting anymore. And then buildings and grounds repair and maintenance supplies is something where they've done their projects during the warm months and they know that this is what they'll have available. And contingency fund, we've been lucky that we haven't had to dip into that this year for anything major, so that's just kind of the general fund, contingency fund there.
the building grounds and maintenance fund that it's coming from, are those things that the council has approved and haven't actually been accomplished yet? Like, what exactly is that coming from?
So these would be operating supplies and maintenance supplies for DPW. So this would be something that would be operational expenses that the department head and the staff would be doing. It could be nails, could be caulking for windows, could be minor gutter repairs, things like that. So that would be kind of the type of thing you would find in that fund.
Okay, my big concern is, I know there are things that the council has approved to have happen that haven't happened through the DPW, like, going back to the pavilion, the stairs were approved to be replaced and they haven't been. Are those funds still rolling over to get them replaced after the council approved to spend that money, or is this going into that?
This wouldn't be going into that. So this is, they have the account number in here, and I did send you a draft budget too. The stairs at the pavilion that are not being done, those funds Zach identified as being carried over so that the repairs could be accomplished next year in a combination of leftover money from this year and then new money allocation to fund that.
Okay, so it's not being drawn from things of that nature then?
No.
Okay, that was my primary concern. But other than that, I just wanted to make sure that the lease, we are able to get out of it and we're not still going to be leasing, because I don't think we should spend any money now unless we know we can be out of the lease. If we still have to lease the vehicle for another year because we didn't cancel the contract in time, we should not be acting on this now.
Agreed. Thank you, Ian. Any other concerns for Kyle on this item here? No? Okay. All right, we're going to move forward. So Kyle, you passed out the budget this evening. What's the plan for this?
So I was just going to do some brief comments on it. I suspected that this meeting was going to take a relatively long time, and we had a lot of items to go over, so I didn't want to go into length at something that's kind of its own animal, sort of. So what I did was, as I was kind of jotting down some notes about what I could quick say, I decided just to write up a sort of off-the-cuff memo that I shared with you and Ian. It should be in your email if you haven't seen it yet. And there's three things. One being the kind of the quick memo that I drafted about the high points as I see them, a carryover log, and then also just the I think 35 pages of budget numbers. So I think my best guess as to how this goes well is you read the memo, take your time to go through the budget, and I mean take your time in the next week because we're turning that around already. But then we have any questions that you have in the meantime, you would send them to me, and if there's any questions I receive, I can send them out kind of in a standardized format so everyone knows what questions there are. But then we come back, with answers to any of those questions, ready to discuss. I do think that there's some opportunities to talk about some of the salaries and compensation, and if there was, targeted compensation like we may have talked about in the past. I want to talk through that and see what the council thinks we can include or not include, and where we want to go. So I think at this point, it's more, setting up, here's the memo, read it. It's kind of my direct thoughts and conversation in my head about the budget. And then just communicate with me, and then hopefully we can have, sort of a final discussion about it on Tuesday, where we can really get ready to put something together for publishing and adoption.
I just want to mention that I'm just looking through this now, and I really appreciate the way that it seems to be organized. I think it makes it read really easily, just compared to, I've only been a part of one other budget process, and I know a lot of you up here haven't been a part of any of processes, but I really appreciate the way that this is laid out. So thank you for putting that together. I think in general speaking, I mean, if we start having a lot of questions and more issues, we can always put together a special meeting too. I think it's just important for council to know that, but I want you guys to, hopefully everybody can find the time to really dig into this stuff. Reach out to Kyle if you have questions. I think that's the best place to start. I think interesting stuff here. But, yeah.
And, it's very complicated, and, some things, they don't always make sense how they're done. So I haven't got a lot of questions yet. So please, 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 give me any questions you have, or even if you just want to discuss budget strategy or budget, position and why you might do one thing over the other. That's the kind of stuff I enjoy. You'll probably fall asleep, but I'll enjoy it. So please feel free to, reach out with anything like that.
Yes. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Kyle immediately right now? No?
How did you do all this?
How do you do that? He's a robot.
That's really my only question too. I've only superficially glanced over it, but it's so organized.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was one of those kind of manic downloads from what the comments in my head getting out on paper. So hopefully you can follow them and it's logical, but it went well. So I hope it's useful.
Kyle.
And I'm
All
just baffled and amazed at Kyle's budget simplification process. It's wonderful.
Okay, guys. All right. Number 21, convene to close session pursuant to 1985 sub 1 sub C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data for any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Columbus Police Local WPPA number 237 Employment Agreement. With that, I'll take a motion to move into closed session for the reasons read.
Alder Pipeline will make a motion to move into closed session for the reasons read.
I'll second.
All right, Pat, would you please take the roll?
Adams.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
Pifron.
Aye.
Reed. Ryan.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, with that, we are in closed session.